Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. But can I be heard okay? Okay.
Please. Got a thumbs up, that's great. So welcome everyone to the hybrid meeting of the full council. Can I ask everyone to please mute their microphones at all times unless invited to speak by myself. Members should be mindful that microphones, when switched on, are sensitive and may broadcast other conversations being held in the vicinity. I would also ask members, when it is their turn to speak into the microphone so that they can be clearly heard by those in the chamber and those listening from home. Members, before we do open announcements, I would like to welcome Catherine Morton here this evening. Catherine is a placement student with the DUP party, and we are delighted here to have her tonight. This is her second visit, so I'm delighted we haven't scared her off with the first one. And on behalf of all members, Catherine, we wish you well with your studies. Okay, members, we have received the opening announcements. I have a light on from Deputy Lord Mayor.
Madam Lord Mayor, thanks for letting me in. I just want to make reference to the royal visit to Banbridge last Friday, which was a major success, and I want to thank our team within Council for all the work and that went in behind the scenes, our Chief Executive, and with Darren and Susan and Katrina and Diane and April that were heavily involved in the organising of that. And I think those that were there in Banbridge, and indeed the large crowd, thousands of people that gathered to greet them in Banbridge, not only was it an honour for myself to welcome Their Majesties into Banbridge on behalf of this council, and I think I speak for a wide range of people right across the board on that, but right down to our street cleansing teams and everything that everybody that made it such a great day. There is a lot that goes in. I witnessed about 4 changes from the Thursday to the Friday morning on lineups and protocol and all of that there. So I do know, I have seen firsthand the hard work that goes on behind the scenes. But it's great that His Majesty took the time to speak to everyone in the room, that everybody around the tables, and his knowledge on environmental issues, and indeed down to the talking and chatting with the 2 butchers that were there, and indeed the rare breed stock and his knowledge within the farming circles and that. And it was a great honour for me, as I say, to welcome him in. And the atmosphere about the town, and I think it's something that we should be very proud of what happened. Not only was Banbridge the star of this council, but it certainly was the star of County Down last Friday morning. So it was. So again, I just want to put on record my thanks to all the team that made that happen. So thank you, Madam Lord Mayor, for letting me in.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for that. I'm going to bring in Alderman Greenfield next, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and could I just echo the words of our Deputy Lord Mayor? Certainly it was a fantastic day in Banbridge on Friday, really, really good from start to finish, and I know an awful lot of work goes into these organising events, and I know all who were involved in it really appreciated being there and actually loved the whole day. And I know you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and your good wife had a great day also in Banbridge, and it was good to see Their Majesties there. And we've been fortunate to have them over before, but they did definitely seem to enjoy Banbridge more than all the rest. But I don't know if that was an official line or not that they put out there, but I do know that it was great to see even actually just to see the actual amount of coverage it got across many, many media platforms, not only news, but I know one local business video was sort of 100,000 shares and views and stuff. So this all is doing really good. And even to see the royal family's own Twitter page going straight out about an incredible turnout in Banbridge on their final day in Northern Ireland. Certainly the town looked fantastic. So just thank you to all the team who made this happen. And it was definitely a brilliant day for Banbridge. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Alderman Greenfield. I'm going to bring in Councillor Ferguson next.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And again, just to echo the comments of my colleagues here in the chamber, for those of us that were present in Banbridge that morning, it was a fabulous morning for the town. His Majesty made it all about the people and the businesses that were there. He spoke to them thoughtfully. He was really knowledgeable. And as he left, I think everybody in Banbridge had a sense that he knew he had come to Banbridge for a particular reason, and he was made very welcome by the people. It was a fantastic atmosphere. I went into Banbridge the next morning and people were still talking about it as the most fantastic day, the most memorable day. And I would like to place on record my thanks to the team who organised this and made it such a special event. It's certainly one to be remembered in Banbridge for quite some time. So thank you to all who were involved.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ferguson. Members, I have no further lights on in opening announcements. Can I check if there's any apologies from the floor, please? Okay, no lights on. I would like to advise members that we have one member joining us online tonight, and that is Councillor Alexander, and others may join then as the meeting progresses. So we're going to move then to 2.1. Can I get a proposer and seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 27th of February be taken as read and approved as a correct record, please? Proposed by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor O'Kane. Members, thank you. Oh, I've got Alderman Moutry coming in.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. C41 makes reference to Storm Owen in January. Can I ask, has any assessment been made yet in relation to the costs that Council would incur in removing and making right trees within the borough? I was in Oxford Island last week and I couldn't believe just how many trees were lost there, and I know many were lost in other parks and forest parks across the borough. And what is the annual budget allocated to tree management? Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Moutry. I'm going to bring Charlene in to answer that.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Moutry, for your question. In regards to an update on the costs, it's intended to bring something back into governance in April time, and I'll hand over then to Jonathan Hayes for the update around annual budget. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, members. Just in relation to Alderman Moutry's question, it's £50,000 annual budget for tree horticulture for parks and open spaces.
Thank you, Jonathan. Charlene, I'm going to bring in Alderman Baxter.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And just in relation to the devastation, obviously, it was caused by the storm. There was quite a bit of fallen garden debris and branches and twigs and all that type of thing. And I am mindful that the council took a decision that brown bin collections would be every 4 weeks throughout the winter, which I think was actually quite successful. And I gauge these things on the amount of complaints you get. And I think I only had 1 or 2 throughout the whole winter. But I think since the beginning of March, whenever the grass probably grew a bit quicker with some of the good weather we had, there's brown bins full all over the place. And I think in one day I had 12 people alone asked me about brown bin collections in March, and I did speak to the director about it, but I think it would be timely just to look at that for next year. Possibly it's too late this year, obviously. I know we're going back to 2-week cycle in April, but I think for next year, I think March is probably too far into the winter, and probably be better going back to the 2 weeks from the start of March. And I appreciate it was a pilot scheme, and I think, you know, given the cost savings that there is, and the lack of complaints there was over the winter, I think it's been successful in that regard. But I think we just need to pull it back probably to the start of March. Just want to highlight that. I know it was a tenuous link there with the storm, Lord Mayor, and thank you for indulging me. But I think it was important to get that in. And maybe, Jonathan, if you could take those maybe comments on board at the Environmental Services Committee, we'll look at that, or the working group, on for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Baxter. I'm going to bring in Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No, just whenever we're discussing obviously the trees that's been down right across ABC during the storm, obviously one of the worst hit areas is Gosford Forest Park. I went for a run around it yesterday, actually just before going to church, and just it's fantastic actually the amount of work that has been done by the forestry and by the council employees. But I think it would be very helpful if we could invite the forestry and the full council here to give us an update going forward. I know obviously there's going to be no short-term fix for this, but I think there needs to be a plan going ahead, because Gosford has been absolutely destroyed. It really, really isn't a bad way going forward. So I would like to ask if it would be possible to have the forestry to give us an update at full council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. We can progress that. I am going to bring in Councillor O'Hanlon, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and can I second Councillor Radcliffe's request to bring Forest Service in. And I think that I've been approached by a number of people who are involved in forestry and in terms of ecology. And the suggestion has been about looking about what is actually planted to replace what has fallen. That it's more maybe native species that is less prone to some of the incidents that we've seen during the storm. So I think it would be useful maybe to have a discussion that it's not just a matter of replace with what's there, but maybe some more native Irish species. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hanlon. Alderman Baxter, you're looking back in?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Thanks for allowing me back in. Just in terms of trees, I know I was actually speaking to Housing Executive a couple of days ago about ash trees and about the ash dieback. And I think there is a study out that they reckon they're going to lose 98% of our ash trees over the next 10 or 15 years. I was just wondering, on the back of what they're saying about trees and planting native species and that, what council, have we got a plan in place about ash dieback? Are we, are we currently monitoring our ash trees to see if they have to come down, or what way are we? Because we've seen what one storm can do to some trees, and I think the ash trees, if they're dying from the inside out as they do, have we any sort of a plan? Are we monitoring those on a regular basis? Or?
Okay, I'll bring in Jonathan for this one.
Thank you for your question, Alderman Baxter. Yes, so it is part of our horticultural grounds maintenance team's work, but as you can say, at times it can be difficult to identify it until it's too late, but certainly they do take an active approach in terms of looking at that across the estate.
Alderman Wilson, you're coming in?
Yes, just a quick question, probably Jonathan's best placed to answer. Just in terms of, our ability to respond to tree felling and that type of thing within the council without going to contractors, how are we equipped for that? And is it a policy that we outsource more? And is there a reason for that? Or is there an ability within the council to carry out that type of work ourselves, thus maybe saving money? But I know we do rely on expertise from outside the organisation, but just to understand the rationale for how we respond to those.
Thank you again, Alderman Wilson, for your question. So yeah, we have 3 external contractors that would help us do our tree horticultural work, as well as an in-house team. I think what we found from the storm, it was unprecedented in relation to the amount of destruction, particularly around the trees and the felling of trees, and therefore the recovery phase was completely unprecedented. However, we were able to utilise fully the 3 contractors as well as our own staff and continue to do that. Trees and the tree maintenance schedules and whatnot, that is something that we are currently going to carry a review out under in relation to our horticultural budget and our tree maintenance programme. So again, looking at that now for the future will help us give an idea around the resource required, the budget required, to try and ensure that storms like this in the future aren't as severely impacted as what we have found in the last number of months. So that is something that we will take on board through that study that we will be completing.
Members, I have no further lights on. Are we all agreed 2.1? Move on. Okay, thank you. Next is declarations of interest, and I think we can take those as the meeting proceeds then. So that brings us into our committee minutes. 4.1 are the minutes of the Environmental Services Committee. Alderman Tinsley, are you happy to propose? Thank you. Councillor Evans, are you happy to second? Great, thank you. Members, I have no lights on. All agreed on it? Great. 4.2 then, we have the minutes of the Planning Committee. Councillor Armstrong, are you happy to propose? Thank you. Councillor Lavery, are you happy to second? Great, thank you. Members, are we all agreed? Great, okay. 4.3 then, we have the minutes of Community and Wellbeing. Councillor Hawkin, are you happy to propose those? Thank you. And then Councillor Hare, are you happy to second? Can't see. Councillor, there you are. Brilliant, thank you. Members all agreed? Great. Okay, so that's 4.4, minutes of the Economic Development and Regeneration Committee. Alderman Greenfield, are you happy to propose those? Great. And then Councillor Jude Mallon, you're happy to second? And I have a number of lights. I'm going to bring in Councillor Flaherty.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Actually, I just want to refer to EDR 22/2025. I'm not going to rehash the lack of events and pour down. We've plenty of time to work that through. What I was going to ask about, I have had recent need to go through the change in places policy. Again, that we have in council, and I know we're one of very few councils who do have a policy, and it was hard work through, but we got there in the end. and I have it here in front of me actually. Now, part of that, for example, is that it has to be out at 12 signature events, council-run signature events. Now, I'm sorry, maybe I've missed something here. I think it's becoming a wee bit hit and miss, and I don't think we're always well informed and it's well communicated if and when it's going to be there. Because, and again, Lord Mayor, if I may, I might have to declare a conflict of interest here, because I do have, my spouse is employed in environmental services, but as we all know, one department cleans and one buys, or whatever it is. But it is parked up, I'm talking about the mobile one, Matt. It is parked up in Carn Depot for an inordinate amount of time, which I think is an absolute shame and disgrace, really, when I know how much money it cost. I know how hard the team worked to get it through the access. And yes, there were help with access and inclusion funding from the department, which of course doesn't exist at the moment. So we're waiting with some shovel-ready projects for when they decide to give some access and inclusion money to the council again. But I would like to see a wee list of when that has been used, how often it has been out, when it's due to be out again. And also it would be very useful, Lord Mayor, to know who, I don't need names, obviously, but whose department and how many people are actually trained to use and maintain this when it is out and about, because I suspect that's where the problem lies, and I suspect that that's why that is parked up in a nice wee corner site rather than being used by the people that really need it. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty, and I'm getting assurances here you'll get that information. Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor McClellan next, please.
Yes, Lord Mayor, thank you for letting me in, and I want to raise EDR 19/2025, which is essentially the elected member involvement in the formation of the local economic partnerships. And at the Economic Development Committee, the head of Economic Development said the instruction and funding both came from the Department for the Economy, and it was they who had set the parameters around membership. That's all very well. That, from my memory, is what was said on the evening. Where I would like a little bit of clarity is that the same subject came up at the NILGA executive meeting in Belfast City Hall a couple of Fridays ago, and the NILGA chief executive, Alison Allen, intimated to us that essentially the Department for Economy weren't prescriptive, and the Department for the Economy left it to each individual council as to how these economic partnerships were set up. So that came as some surprise to me. I made sure that I reached out to Alison today, and I got an email from her at 4 minutes past noon, and I'll quote directly. I did speak to senior DFE officials about it a couple of months ago and was advised that it was for each council to decide, and that DFE were not being prescriptive. Quite frankly, Lord Mayor, those two versions don't tally. They don't tally. And I would like an officer to perhaps give council a few sentences on what is the actual position, because those two narratives simply don't match. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to bring in Paul.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the members' query into those not matching. I do have the draft guidance for the LEP partnerships, and I'm happy to, I suppose, furnish members with those if that's a requirement. It does outline, I suppose, how these LEP partnerships need to be set up. Members weren't, I think through the ratification of that minute, there is a proposal for members to be involved in the LEP partnerships. We're waiting for that ratification tonight. There is nothing in the LEP partnership that can't happen, just for that clarity. And so once that ratification happens tonight, there will be an email out to the parties in terms of representation. But happy to furnish the member with the guidance that we were given from the Department of Economy.
I'll bring you back in, Councillor Cleland.
Okay, Lord Mayor, thank you for your indulgence, and I thank Paul for his answer. And I suppose as of 5 o'clock this evening, I also have the terms of reference, so that's fine. And yes, I know all of this has essentially moved on and will move on after this evening. But the fact was, we were told that the department were prescriptive, and that was not the case. So thank you, Paul, for the clarity around all of this, but just let's have some learning out of this for the future. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to bring in Alderman Moutry, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The narrative that Councillor McClelland relayed to us tonight from Nilga was virtually replicated in Londonderry on Thursday at the NAC by another councillor from another party, from another council in Northern Ireland. So I'm glad that Paul has moved things on tonight, and that there won't be a democratic deficit in this body as it moves forward. But I think, yes, as Councillor McClelland said, there's a learning curve to be learnt by this council moving on, and that is, don't take elected members for granted.
Thank you, Alderman Moutry. Councillor O'Hanlon, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I bring you back to ADR 22 of 2025? It was the issue in relation to signature and regional tourism events. And I suppose it's important to note, I'm a member of the Armagh Pipers Club, but it's just to note that the festival, which has been hugely successful, running for 30 years, is now the board or whatever it is has taken the decision to stop that festival because of pressures around funding, particularly in around accommodation costs and stuff. So I'd ask that Brian reaches out to the organisers in the committee and see if there's anything that can be done, because it was one of the festivals that reached right across the community and was very much in terms of celebrating what unites us in music. Just in relation to the item which Councillor Flaherty referred to, and the change in places facilities, and at the Economic Development Committee, she said that it was a game changer for people with disabilities in enabling them to attend those types of events. And she's right, it's about the mat being parked up at Cairn Depot too much. To support 12 events a year, to me, is telling those people with disabilities, you're not welcome to the other events. And I think it's a shame and disgrace. Now, I understand there are elements which I think Councillor Flaherty referred to earlier in relation to training of staff, but there's also an issue. I get it, you can't have it there that is available to absolutely every single event that's happening, but to me there is some inconsistencies in it, and I would ask that and I've got a copy of the Change in Places policy paper, and I've asked for some of the details which Councillor Flaherty's asked for, but can I ask that the policy is brought back to the events working group and that policy is reviewed with the view to extending the accessibility of that facility. If it's linked to, for example, groups who are in receipt of financial assistance through council, I think there's an opportunity there, but I think that we should be doing everything we can to open up events to people with all abilities and those with none. So I'd be keen that that is done as quickly as possible. So can I propose that the Change in Places policy is referred to the events working group and that it is reviewed and something back pretty damn quick before the summer recess. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hanlon. I'm going to bring in Councillor Flaherty before Brian.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, that's an inherently sensible idea to bring that back to the working group, and so I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty. I'm going to bring in Brian then to give his assurances on both those points, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and good evening, members. Just in Councillor O'Hanlon's first point on the William Kennedy Piping Festival, I have met with the organisers and they are considering a smaller version of the festival, so it does look like that can be revived for this year, for November. So again, as you said, accommodation costs and so forth have been prohibitive, so they are looking at all of that. In respect of the mat toilet, I'm going to pass over to Paul if that's okay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Flattery and Councillor Hanlon, for your requests around the mat toilet, or the changing places toilet, the mobile changing places toilet, as I did review the policy as well, which was agreed in 2023, and I do think now would be an ideal time to maybe take another look at it now that it's been in place. Happy to bring that to the events working group as requested, and I suppose work through that process there and endeavour to get something sorted as soon as possible.
Thank you, members. I've no further lights on. Are we all agreed then on 4.4? Great, thank you. We'll go to 4.5, which is the minutes of the Governance, Resources and Strategy Committee. Councillor Haughey was an apology for that meeting. Councillor Ferguson, are you happy to propose those? Can I have someone else that was there on the night then to second, please? Second by Councillor Meckel, thank you. Members, are we all agreed? Because I don't have any lights on. Great. 4.6 then is the minutes of Performance and Audit Committee. Councillor Mulholland, are you happy to propose those? Great, thank you. And then Alderman Kennedy, are you happy to second those? Great. Members all agreed? Okay, that brings me then to 5.1, our schedule of correspondence. Members, do we wish to comment on or respond to this correspondence or just note? I don't see any lights on, so the moment is passed on that. So 5.2, 5.3 are for noting. That brings us then to item 6. Can I get a proposer and seconder to agree to sign and seal all of these legal documents then, please? Proposed by Councillor McConville-Walker and seconded by Councillor O'Kane. Members, thank you. That brings us then to our notice of motion in 7.1, and Councillor Lavery is going to take us through this one. Oh, sorry, Councillor Savage is going to come in first.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. As the motion refers to social housing and the delivery of it, I work in the Department for Communities Housing Investment branch, so that's about the provision of social housing, so I'll set this one out, so I'll head out, all right? Thank you.
We'll note that, Councillor Savage. Thank you for making us aware, and I'm going to bring you in now, Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wish to address a pressing issue affecting over 38,000 individuals in this borough who rely on the private rented sector for their housing needs. This motion highlights the critical challenges of affordable rents, insufficient long-term security and inadequate tenant protections that many of our constituents face daily. The private rented sector in Northern Ireland is the fastest growing across the UK and Ireland, with twice as many families living in private rented housing in Northern Ireland than in the social housing sector. The affordability crisis in our private rental market is stark. In the final quarter of 2024, an average monthly rent consumes approximately 35% of the average income, escalating to an alarming 50% for our lowest earners. That surge in rental costs, a 9% increase from the previous year, far outpaced the 4% growth in average wages during the same period. Such disparities force families into making difficult decisions, often sacrificing essential needs such as food and heating to keep a roof over their heads. That imbalance is exacerbated by a significant undersupply of rental properties. Contributing factors include delays in private house building, inadequate funding for new homes, planning system bottlenecks, and insufficient water infrastructure capacity. Moreover, with 48,000 individuals on the social housing waiting list across Northern Ireland, many low-income families are compelled to seek housing in the private sector, often at a higher cost with fewer protections. However, Lord Mayor, there are solutions to this crisis, some of which are outlined in the motion. In terms of a ban on no-fault evictions, there should be legislation to prohibit evictions without a valid reason, which will provide tenants with greater security and stability in their homes, where tenants can have the confidence in raising legitimate issues with their landlords without a concern that they could face eviction as a result. The creation of a statutory housing ombudsman will create an independent body to oversee disputes between tenants and landlords, ensuring accountability and access to justice. There should be an increase in the affordable rental supply by utilising existing housing stock more effectively and incentivising the development of new affordable rental properties to alleviate the supply shortage. That would include reducing the number of short-term holiday lets and making greater use of empty homes. Finally, there should be a thorough review of housing standards and the enforcement of minimum fitness standards. The enforcement mechanism should be strengthened to ensure that all rental properties are safe and habitable, including statutory timeframes for landlords to investigate and carry out repairs. This council should also play a key role in helping to provide opportunities for the construction of affordable and social housing to take people out of housing stress. By placing a minimum percentage for such housing types in new housing developments on our upcoming local development plan, Council will accelerate long-lasting positive change to many residents and indeed future residents in this borough. Such a measure has already been contained in many other councils' draft LDPs, so we in ABC Council shouldn't be left behind. To summarise, Lord Mayor, the proposals in this motion are not merely aspirational, they are grounded in the urgent needs of our constituents. By implementing a new deal for private renters, we can create a private rented sector that offers affordable, secure and high-quality housing for all. The challenges in our private rented sector are multifaceted and deeply entrenched. However, with decisive action and comprehensive reforms, we can transform the sector from being one in which a tenant has to choose between a roof over their head or dinner on the table to one that serves the best interests of tenants and landlords. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. I'm going to bring in Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Members, this motion is about ensuring we support private renters in our council area and across Northern Ireland, and that we wish to see improved protections for them. Private renters in Northern Ireland face constant challenges on a regular basis. Unaffordable rent hikes, lack of security and long delays for basic repairs are making life miserable for them. Additionally, I'm sure we are all aware of how difficult it is for young adults and first-time buyers to get onto the housing market, which is exacerbated by the increase in rent costs whilst trying to save for a mortgage. It is almost impossible to do both in some cases. That is why Alliance has called for an affordable rents triple lock, which includes the rent increase limit, an annual review of local housing allowance, and a ban on inflation-busting rent hikes during tenancies. We also believe that a ban on no-fault evictions, capping short-term holiday lets, and creating a local housing ombudsman with legal powers to protect renters would improve the long-term private renting market and make it more financially sustainable. Whilst we welcome that the Communities Minister has confirmed that you will introduce regulations to limit private rent increases during tenancies to once per year, ultimately more can be done. Legal mechanisms, as outlined in the motion, would ensure over 300,000 people living in the local private rent sector, including nearly 39,000 in our own area, have the same protections and security enjoyed by renters elsewhere. That is why we ask this Council to support our motion to ensure the Communities Minister makes this a priority, and that we as a Council also play our part by agreeing to include the minimum percentage of social and affordable housing in new housing developments as part of the upcoming local development plan. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I'm going to bring in Alderman Baxter, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I do see merit in the motion. I understand why it's been brought forward this evening. I think as elected representatives we do get lobbied quite heavily sometimes from private renters, and I think rent is becoming unaffordable for a lot of people. But look, I'm going to make an amendment to the motion, if possible. And look, it's fairly self-explanatory. I have sent the amendment to the Chief Executive and to Wendy Geary as well, so we can maybe put that out to all members centrally very shortly, because I suppose it does become a wee bit convoluted, but I will read the amendment and where I've made the changes. So the first bit, that this Assembly expresses concern on affordable rents, lack of long-term security and inadequate protections for tenants in Northern Ireland's private rented sector, recognises that many private renters face a constant struggle to keep a roof over their heads, afford daily essentials, or access the basic repairs necessary to make their homes habitable and safe. And then, new wording here, welcomes work undertaken by the Minister for Communities to improve and mandate electrical and fire safety in private rental properties, endorses plans to introduce much longer notice to quit periods, as well as transfer landlord registration to local councils, recognises the need to, and take away and end calls for Minister for Communities, so recognises the need to deliver, and instead of a new deal, a fair deal for private renters, including a considered system of, and then this is additional, improvements to the quality, security and safety of private rented homes, and calls on the Minister for Communities to progress. And then we omit from third generation down to Ombudsman. And then it's to progress measures to boost the supply of affordable rental properties. And then additional, consider the merits of letting agent regulation and keeping under review fitness standards and enforcement in the private rented sector. And then when it comes to the last paragraph, Lord Mayor, I propose in this amendment that we leave that out. I think there's far too much in that to be prescriptive to the local plan. I think that would need to be discussed at length in committee. We just can't. It's a bit ad hoc at the end there, just to say we're going to do this all of a sudden when lots of work has already been undertaken in terms of that. And we all know where we are with that development plan in any case. So I think that could be part of the consultation period. I think public consultation even opens for that part of the plan as well later on this year. So I would propose that we leave the last paragraph out. Now I do realise that amendment is a bit convoluted, so I have sent it out there, Roger. If you ask the Chief Executive, can that be sent to all members? Yeah, and you'll see with the green is the additional and the reds were taken out. So I officially propose that amendment to the motion, and I'm hoping that the proposer can accept that amendment. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that? Can I bring in Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, happy to second that amendment, Lord Mayor.
Okay, members, we're going to have an adjournment in just a moment, but first I'm going to bring in the proposer.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for bringing me in, and thank you, Alderman Baxter, for his kind words about the motion and the various amendments he sort of pointed out there. I want to come back with a couple of things. I think a lot of Alderman Baxter, and I do think he could even be a potential Assembly member in the future, but he sort of talked about amending the Assembly's motions. This is this Council's motion, not an Assembly motion. And I think a number of his amendments may be related to a motion debated in the Assembly, because he's included taking out wording that's not actually in my motion, but maybe was in that motion. So I think maybe Alderman Baxter needs to use the time during the adjournment, maybe consider his amendment to, make sure we're actually talking about the same things. I will actually not be accepting those amendments. I don't think the wording in Alderman Baxter's amended motion goes far enough. I do welcome the work for the ministers of Communities, Gordon Lyons, as my colleague pointed out, but we shouldn't be celebrating the bare minimum. A number of those things the Minister was required to do came as part of the 2022 Northern Ireland Private Tenancies Act, which was brought in during the Sinn Féin Minister, Dirty Hargey, I believe, and which were long delayed for two reasons. One, the DUP collapse of the institutions, and then secondly, the same Minister dragging his heels on this. Now, it is to be welcomed that private renters will only be subjected to one rent increase for every 12-month period and have to provide it with 3 months written notice. But as I said, Lord Mayor, we shouldn't be celebrating the bare minimum. I'm content with my motion as is, but if Alderman Baxter wants to take the adjournment to get his amendments in correct order, that can be decided and voted on, maybe that should be done. But I think it's a good motion. And the final thing I want to touch on is sort of about the final paragraph. I think that he wants to remove completely or amend. Remove completely because it says we're already doing it. Well, if they're already doing it, he shouldn't have any issue with it already being in there. And indeed, it talks about how the percentages could be allocated. I know some councils are doing it differently. That would be up to the, I think there's a working group on the local development plan that feeds through the plan. And I think we should be ambitious for this Borough, Lord Mayor. And that's what I hope the local development plan will achieve with that additional percentage for social housing and affordable housing and so on. Sorry, I've spoken at length, Lord Mayor, so I guess we'll go into the adjournment now, but hope Councillor Baxter Alderman Baxter takes my comments on board before he eventually does get into Assembly at one stage there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Alderman Baxter, that's a glowing endorsement you just got there from Councillor Lavery. I'll bring you back in before we adjourn.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you very much to the proposer of the motion for his very kind words. And you will note, whenever I did see the motion, it did spark my memory that it did come before the Assembly. So, as you can imagine, with any research with the motion, I've been stuck in Hansard all afternoon, and I get carried away maybe with the Assembly and what was said at the Assembly. So, I'm happy to change Assembly to Council. I think it was one small omission there, so I'm happy to change that and just keep the proposal as it is then. And with the last paragraph, I don't think I did say that we were doing it anyway. I said we could look at it as part of if you know, the public consultation. If members of the public want to put that in as a response to the public consultation, that's how we'll do that. I didn't say council were doing it already, just to make that clear as well. So yeah, happy to change that one word, Lord Mayor, and keep the proposal on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Baxter. Members, I'm going to pause now for 5 minutes to allow us to have a read of Alderman Baxter's proposal, which you all should now have received. ICT, can I ask you to switch off the feed, please? Great, that thumbs up, thank you. Okay, members, before I put the question to the floor, Alderman Baxter would like to come in first, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor. And just really to tidy up, I had a few conversations there. So, look, I'll just read the new amendment. I have sent it to everyone there. Just in terms of the last paragraph, and we did mention, hold on a second. I've lost all my emails here, Lord Mayor. 1 second. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, just in terms of the last paragraph, and there was some discussion around, what we're doing in the LDP, Local Development Plan. As I said, that's in process at the minute. I think the affordable housing policy, it's going to be included, and we're still at the draft strategy stage, and it's going to public consultation as well. I don't think we'll have a percentage as yet. That still has to be confirmed. And I do believe, speaking to Elizabeth, I think there's a workshop planned for members in April, so I think that will start to deal with that. I think to bring that tonight, and that's why I've left it out of the amendment, I think to bring that tonight is far too much just really to debate on and in such a short space of time. So I think we can do that at the workshop and then feed that in at a later date. Just in terms of the motion then, I have sent an amended one out again, so I'm not sure if I need to withdraw that because it is basically the same. I've just tidied up, but the wording is the same as opposed to Assembly just said now Council. So we'll read it out just for clarity. That this Council expresses concern on affordable rents, lack of long-term security and adequate protections for tenants in Northern Ireland's private rented sector, recognises that many private renters face a constant struggle to keep a roof over their heads, afford daily essentials or access to basic repairs necessary to make their homes habitable and safe, welcomes work undertaken by the Minister for Communities to improve and mandate electrical and fire safety in private rental properties, endorses plans to introduce much longer notice to quit periods as well as transfer landlord registration to local councils, recognises the need to deliver a fair deal for private renters, including a considered system of improvements to the quality, security and safety of private rented homes, and calls on the Minister for Communities to progress measures to boost the supply of affordable rental properties, consider the merits of letting agent regulation and keep under review fitness standards and enforcement in the private rented sector. Now, I think that's an amendment that everybody could get behind and support. And I'll maybe ask the proposer again, given the clarity around it, if he would support that amendment before putting the motion to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Baxter. I'm going to bring in Councillor Armstrong, please.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. Just happy to second that amendment.
Okay, that has been seconded. I'm going to bring in Councillor Evans, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I apologise for only coming in now. I wanted to seek a bit of clarity during the break there. I just wanted to declare an interest as a private renter, but could I also ask, just for the record, if Kate could just give us some clarity in regards to this motion and private renters and landlords? Thank you.
Kate, I'll bring you in.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. I think that if anybody is in the room, a private renter or a landlord, then it would be advisable to declare an interest. And obviously, if you wish to withdraw from voting or taking part on this motion, then that is obviously a matter for the councillor also. But I'm available to take to provide further advice on this matter as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. I'll bring in Councillor McClellan, please.
Yes, Lord Mayor, given what the Council Solicitor said, I would declare an interest as a private renter.
Thank you, Councillor McClellan. I'm going to bring in Councillor Ratcliffe, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As a landlord, I would have to declare an interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. I'm going to bring in Alderman Berry, please.
I don't know what way I'm going to go here, Madam Lord Mayor. I'd have to declare an interest in a couple of points. An estate agent who sent out letters to tenants today about increasing their rent, and also rented properties. Thank you.
Thank you for that. It was shorter than I thought. I'm going to bring in Councillor McClellan back in, please.
Yes, indeed, Lord Mayor, apologies. I am a landlord rather than a renter. Thank you.
Okay, members think we're going to be here all night. Councillor O'Kane, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm a landlord.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Duffy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm a private renter.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy, for that. Councillor Ashley Mallon, please. Councillor Mallon, can I check if you're on mute?
Oh, is that better?
That's better. Can you just repeat that for us, please?
Yeah, declare an interest. I'm a private renter.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Councillor Mallon. Okay, members are going to bring in Councillor Mackle then, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're back to the motion now and dealing with the motion rather than declarations of interest. No, I mean, in terms of our position, we've had assurances too that the LDP stuff is in train, so I don't see the need for that final paragraph in relation to the amendment, even though the amendment still has things in the original in the black print that aren't actually in the Alliance Party motion. We're prepared to accept everything in black and green as a new amended motion. There's bits of it that we think make it a better motion, particularly in where it's dealing with the letting agent regulations. We think that's a big gap in the north that we don't have, that other jurisdictions on both islands do have. And there's lots and lots of issues. I think all members will have had issues raised with them about letting agents and the attitude sometimes with letting agents towards tenants. So we think that makes the amended motion a better motion, and we'd be prepared to support that. I would hope that Councillor Lavey would accept the amendment and everybody can agree. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mackle. And I'm going to bring in the proposer then, Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and appreciate sort of Alderman Baxter and Councillor Mackle's amendment there that they finally decided on what they're amending and what the wording is. Lord Mayor, unfortunately, I'm not going to be accepting the motion. It seems to be rewritten in its current form. I'll give a couple of reasons why. One of the important things I want to talk about in the motion is a ban on no-fault evictions. The amended one just talks about longer evictions, longer notices to evict. I've been involved in a number of bits of casework where that has destroyed people's lives. So to have that wording whittled down in such a way, I wouldn't be keen on it. I heard references to things like, oh, it's going to be in the local development plan already in terms of a potential percentage. You know, if it's going to be in it already, I don't understand why members have a difficulty with include something saying that they're going to do something that they're going to do in the motion. So, you know, I don't understand. I don't understand the amenders' views on that point. You know, maybe there'll be slipping in that train Councillor Mackle talks about will be a train to nowhere, but certainly Alliance parties on that train will see it implemented. I mean, I was going to say something about the minister, but you know, I'm going to leave party politics on the side for a minute and talk about one thing. That's really important in this motion that lacks in the Sinn Féin DEP amendment here. Is it talking about the DEP amendment, DEP Sinn Féin amendment? It's the reference to the 38,854 private renters in this borough. It's the second highest amount in any local government district in Northern Ireland. That's a lot of people who are in a lot of difficult circumstances, and it's becoming an increasing and growing issue. And feedback certainly from my constituencies that they need more support. And a couple of things in this motion, the original motion, I think would help them. So I do not accept the amendment, Lord Mayor, so I'm happy to go to a vote if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Okay, members, I'm going to ask the question then. Members, are we all accepting of Alderman Baxter's amendment? Okay, members, we don't have agreement, but before we go to a vote, Kate is going to come in with some legal advice, please.
Hello, members. On reflection, further to the advice that I provided about declarable interests, on reflection, looking at the Code of Conduct, I would advise that anybody who is a landlord or privately rents, because I think that they would have a significant private or personal non-pecuniary interest, potentially pecuniary interest, abstains from considering and voting on this notice of motion and withdraws from the chamber. Obviously, that is advice that I'm providing, and it's a member's own responsibility whether or not they accept that advice, but I thought that I'd better come in and clarify the previous advice that I provided. Thank you, members.
Okay, members have 2 lights on. Alderman Baxter, please.
Yeah, just very quickly, and look, I understand the legal advice, and that's fine, you know, and it's up to everybody, and that's grand. Is this withdrawn from the chamber business? This is public session. Does that necessarily actually leave the chamber whenever it's on YouTube anyway? So you could go out there and watch it on YouTube. I think if you're not taking part in the debate and you're not voting, that's probably enough. Just to, because then you want to go out and get them.
Hi, Alderman Baxter. I think... Sorry, it is expressly stated in the Code of Conduct you must then withdraw from any council meeting when the matter is being discussed. So I'm just simply reading from the Code of Conduct that it states you should withdraw.
Okay, members, that's the advice. I'm going to bring in Alderman Berry.
Me again, Madam Lord Mayor. I'm just looking at advice from Kate. As an estate agent who manages properties and works for landlords, what do I do?
Okay, members, thank you. Kate?
Thank you, Alderman Berry. I mean, the Code of Conduct states, do you think this matter, a decision on this matter might reasonably deem to benefit or disadvantage you to a greater extent than other council constituents? So if you believe that a decision on this matter will potentially affect your business, then my advice would be to withdraw from the chamber when this is being discussed and to not take part.
Okay, members, we will now move to a vote shortly. It will appear on your screen. I will let you know when. Accepted. To the amendment, Has voting started? Okay, voting is now on your screen. Just to be clear, sorry, I wasn't very clear. They were voting on the amendment. Okay, members, voting is now coming to an end. Okay, members, scores in the doors then. We have 28 in favour of the amendment, 4 with a no and then 1 abstain. So because there was recorded vote, I'm going to have to call out all these names, so bear with me. So Councillor Scott Armstrong, yes. Alderman Barr, yes. Alderman Baxter, yes. Alderman Burns, yes. Councillor Kyle Savage, yes. Councillor me, Lord Mayor, yes. Councillor Fergal Donnelly, yes. Councillor Flaherty, yes. Alderman Greenfield, yes. Councillor Hare, yes. Councillor Haughey, yes. Councillor Hawkin, yes. Alderman Kennedy, yes. Councillor Mackle, yes. Councillor Mallon, yes. Councillor McCartan, yes. Councillor McConville Walker, yes. Councillor McElrath, yes. Councillor Moutry, yes. Alderman Moutry, yes. Councillor Mulholland, yes. Councillor Nelson, yes. Councillor O'Dowd, yes. Councillor O'Hanlon, yes. Alderman Rankin, yes. Alderman Tinsley, yes. Alderman Wilson, yes. And Councillor Wilson, yes. The noes are Councillor Alexander, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Johnson and Councillor Lavery, and the abstain is from Councillor Ashley Mallon. So, members, the amendment then has passed. I'm going to pass to Councillor Lavery to wind the motion.
Sorry, I keep forgetting I have to press the button first before we go in. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for all the contributors in the debate there. Won't push to another vote, on the new substantive motion, but I hope it does put into mind, to the forefront of people's mind more when we're talking about house building. I think it's not just people buying houses, very much the sizable renting population in our borough. Various issues were touched on in terms of water infrastructure and that needs sorted, which is stagnating growth of the social housing sector, not just pushing people into high private rents, and it's a combination of many factors which is having a negative impact, on people's daily living when they're having to put so much of their wage to keep a food or to keep a roof over their head, when they can't even think about getting in terms of the property ladder to purchase a property in this borough. But thank you, Lord Mayor. I hope it has, and maybe with it's being reported that it puts in a lot of people's mind that they still do have rights. They still can put in complaints about the landlords if there's issues, and other elected representatives and myself and all in this room will help people in that for various housing stress to do what we can. But hopefully, when push comes to shove, and the new local development plan, various workshops and that there will be various percentages for social and affordable housing and new housing developments. Because, Lord Mayor, I think that is a key catalyst for changing this borough and help provide people in happier, healthier communities, and less people in housing stress. But thank you, Lord Mayor, for your courtesy during the debate.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. We'll now welcome our estate agents, landlords, ladies and private renters back into the room, please. Oh, members, are we all agreed? Okay. The cake. Okay, members, thank you. Members, we're going to move in then to confidential business. Can I have a proposer and seconder to go into committee for consideration of the confidential items of business? Proposed by Councillor McElrath and seconded by Councillor O'Dowd there, please. Thank you very much. Members and listeners to the audio feed in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act. Okay, members? We will now be moving into a confidential session of the Council. This means that we will be turning off the public audio feed of the meeting, and this will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can the ICT officers please turn off the audio feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of the meeting can proceed? Okay, we have their assurances. Thank you. Members, can I have a proposer and seconder to adopt the decisions taken in committee, please? Proposed by Alderman Councillor McClelland and seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Sorry, I have no glasses tonight, members. Okay, members, that brings us on then to our notices of motion, and we have 4 tonight. And I'm going to bring in Councillor... Oh, sorry, AOB. I'm going to bring in Councillor McClelland, please.
Okay, Lord Mayor, thank you for bringing me in, and thank you for taking my notice of motion. I'm sorry, my AOB. It's catching, Lord Mayor. Yeah, it's catching. No. Listen, I really appreciate you taking my AOB. And look at, growing up, I was always taught that it's important to say thank you. And that, I guess, is why, or is some of the context around this AOB. Members will know that my large rural DEA of Lagan River, from an historic point of view, had some of the worst roads within our borough, and especially within the Grantia ward. And I suppose for almost as long as I've been on council, I've been lobbying DFA roads to improve roads within the wider Lagan River DEA. And I would have to say, Lord Mayor, a huge thank you to local DFA officials, because thankfully quite a number of roads have had progress. And I'm thinking of Cairn Park Road, I'm thinking of Warringsford Village, I'm thinking of Canallan Road, Canallan, and of Fedney Road, to name a few. And Lord Mayor, as I said earlier, it's a huge thank you to DFA, because this is really appreciated. I suppose it can be summed up like this, Lord Mayor: progress made, but much more to do, particularly within Lagan River. And I would conclude, Lord Mayor, by proposing that we, or your good self, write to DFA Southern Division to thank them for the progress that has been made within the Lagan River DEA. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to bring in Deputy Lord Mayor, please.
Thank you, Madam Lord Mayor. I'm certainly happy to second that there. So, because I think the roads mentioned there, I think all the councillors, or the majority of the councillors in Lagan River, have been lobbying for them, even from Black Skull right across to Fedney Road and so on and so forth, being approached by many of the residents along that. And yeah, it's great to thank people for doing their job. So it is at the end of the day. We have so many more to do, the state of our roads and that, and it'd be good if we could get the ministers to start and step up to the mark and start to run their departments more efficiently, and to start to deliver better roads for each and every one of us right across our widespread borough that we have here. We have a massive rural, again, largest rural council in Northern Ireland, so it's important that these departments step up to the mark and do the job. But again, it's great to thank people for doing their job, but they need to step up and continue to do more. Thank you, Madam Lord Mayor, but happy to second that.
Okay, members, we all agreed with writing the letter? Okay. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. And it's welcome news that some areas have got a bit of progress on getting their roads done. But just to concur with other contributors there, much more needs done. I can safely say, if you went out to that DFA road service clinic there this afternoon, the members were queuing up to raise issues with DFA, that basically they feel as if they're banging their head against a brick wall. I know, and other colleagues that represent Banbridge DEA could rhyme off a dozen roads at least that are in a shocking state, and you just seem to be getting nowhere with it. One in particular in Uri Street in Rathfriland, if anybody tries to go up it, you'll need a four-wheel drive tractor to get up and down the road. It's in that bad a condition, and you seem to get bluffed off every time you raise it. So that's just one dimension amongst many, many more. But I welcome progress in some areas, but across the borough, we really need a better service from DFA to improve our roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'm going to bring in Councillor O'Hanlon, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And for factual inaccuracies, Councillor McClellan refers to some of the worst roads in the country, or in parts of his DEA. Well, let me invite him to come to mine. And if you come via the Clay Road in Katy or out into parts of Derrynoose, the potholes are so deep you have to blow your horn coming back up out of them so somebody doesn't drive over you. But also, if you drive on the main Armagh Newtown Hamilton Road, has anyone ever tried going into Newtown Hamilton Village? It is just on the edge of this borough. And I tell you this, it's a shame and disgrace anybody who calls themselves an MLA, a minister or anything from any party that are not standing up and shouting and roaring about the facilities in that area. Because I tell you this, that road is a disgrace. But we just for inaccuracies, I see his, if this was a game of chess, I see his bad roads and I'll show him a hell of a lot more in the area that I represent.
Okay. Members, we're going to move on then to the second AOB, and it's from Alderman Moutray.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Next week marks a big date in that it will be a decade since the 11 so-called super councils will have taken over and started to function. And in relation to that, can I pose a question to the Chief Executive for his assessment as to what progress has been made over the past decade in relation to harmonisation of services and terms and conditions across the 3 legacy councils? Is there anything more that can be done to accelerate this? And is there a timeline that can be set to complete out on it? Because 1 decade later, I really think we should have more progress made. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Moutray. I'll bring in our Chief Exec.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Alderman Moutray for the question. And yes, members, it does seem like a long time ago that 10 years have passed. The starting point for the reform of local government, the 3 legacy councils, and we banned the word legacy a short time ago, all started from very, very different places. So they did. We also had transferring services and functions coming in. Each of the 3 councils were in different states of readiness and had different operating arrangements and different cultures. No change for approximately 40 years or so. There has been a significant amount of work done and an awful lot delivered over the last 10 years. So I suppose, members, maybe just to rehearse some of the stuff and then to pick up on the point that Alderman Moutray has talked about. So in the early days, if you remember, it was about transitioning. And those transitions included getting organisation designs, committee systems up and running. And those were included the new arrangements around call-ins and committees, use of the haunts, getting a planning committee up and running, as well as helping outside bodies and organisations, our Business Partnership Alliance and sports forums and things like that. Many things done through the likes of our economic development. We have built South Lakes. So an awful lot has been achieved. There's an awful lot more still to be done. As Alderman Moutray has said, harmonisation of terms and conditions still remains a priority. There were, as I said, 3 different organisations. We're working very closely with trade unions and staff. We know that there have been some challenges on staffing through the last number of years, but we are committed, and the trade unions are committed, to try and harmonise those as soon as we can. And in terms of service design, there's a lot of work going on at this minute in time around the transformation and efficiencies agenda. Reports have already been brought through to members. Decisions have been made in recent times around use of estates and assets and so on. So it's very much a work in progress. It's a big job, but certainly over the next year, we certainly want to see an awful lot more happening, Lord Mayor.
Okay, members, happy to move on? Okay, I'm going to bring in Alderman Baxter next, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And this is something probably that I wouldn't be in favour of normally about council, doing something probably that probably doesn't sit within their remit. But I think all members will know, anybody that's on social media and Facebook, whenever there's anyone who dies now, particularly young people, I have to say, particularly people who die in tragic circumstances, where there's a lot of social media speculation about it and talks about funerals and that type of thing. There's a fairly new sort of scam, and you've seen it probably, and I'm sure everybody's got them, friend requests from these people and different funeral homes that purport that they're going to stream the funeral of the so-called person who has died in tragic circumstances. They're going to do it live, or going to stream it live, and there's a link to that. And when you hit on that link, you pay like $2.99 or nominal fee. When really it's just to get your details and scam you out of money. And I know people personally who've been scammed out of money for it, and it's happening more and more and more, and people are still falling for it, and they're getting craftier in how to do it. And we all know about scams. We'll look at it through the PCSP and all as well, and these different things. But this is one, I think, that delves into new lows. And then families are asked about it, and then families have to deal with it on top of the tragic circumstances as well. And a family did contact me about it recently. There was death in very tragic circumstances, and then they had to deal with all this as well. And I did notice some of the funeral directors have put it out on their own social media channels. So my ask tonight's a very simple one. It's just that maybe council, given the reach that our social media has, that maybe council could put out something just to remind folks that this is scam aware. Maybe could work with PCSP or something, just to put something out to let people know that you never accept these friend requests, and if you want to watch a funeral online, go on directly to the funeral director's website or wherever it's streamed from. But it's a very easy thing to fall for, actually, and I think they're getting more and more sophisticated, all these scams, not just funeral scams, but I think there's one in particular. It's something that sickens me to the pit of my stomach when you see maybe a child who's died in such circumstances, and then you get a friend request from somebody purporting to, like a bona fide business purporting to do the funeral service live, and they're even commenting on private families' pages to say, you know, to say this and put people on the links, and there's people falling for it everywhere. So I think all we can do to highlight it, and that's why I'm using this forum to do it, and I know it sits outside what council would normally do, but I think just in particular because of what it is, that maybe council could look at that, and even, as I said, in conjunction with the PCSP, to put something out on the social media channels, given the reach that we would have across the borough. So I just wanted to highlight that, not only tonight, but maybe looking to the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Baxter. I too know families who have fallen victim to this, so I think any increased awareness can only be a good thing. So thank you for bringing this tonight. Members, are we all agreed with that? Okay, thank you. And then our last AOB is going to be from Councillor Moutry, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for accepting that request for AOB. Tonight, members, I wanted to raise some very valid concerns on behalf of my constituents. Recently, there have been 2 instances of really graphic, heartbreaking, abject cruelty towards household pets in Portadown. Whether or not you're a pet owner yourself, we all must recognise and agree that animal cruelty cannot and should not go unpunished in Northern Ireland. Council do have a responsibility for the enforcement of the Welfare of Animals Act 2011 in respect of non-farmed animals. Publicly, I think this role of council is often quite overlooked. It's perhaps not something we as members engage with enough on, but it's crucial that we get it right. It has recently been reported that there has been a year-on-year rise in the number of animal cruelty complaints across all councils in Northern Ireland, and with this, offenders must be held to account. To this end, I would ask that a report is brought back to the Environmental Services Committee detailing the number of animal welfare complaints received in 2024 and the degree of which council are currently equipped to deliver a timely, robust and consistent approach to ensure that animals are protected by law. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moutry. Members, are we all in agreement with that? Okay, thank you. I don't see any lights on. Members, that concludes the full council meeting. Thank you for your cooperation, and please do join us now in the mezzanine. Thank you.